Yeah, it was an accident, but no business plan. It was a bootstrap business that it was step by step and taking advantage of what was in front of me. So, because I think there's a lot of company culture that shows up in just the way you do business. Because I put my people first, they put their candidates first, they put their clients first. Every person is going to contribute something to a company culture. And I think leaders just need to be aware that there is design to it, and you can be intentional. Control what you can control.
Welcome to The Growth Switch, the podcast where we dive into the strategies, struggles, and breakthroughs of bold business leaders. I'm your host, Jules Fox, growth strategist and lead content creator at Artist Media, and I'm here to uncover how today's top brands are scaling, overcoming challenges, and unlocking sustainable success. Now, for those of you just tuning in, Artist Media helps successful brands like yours to grow with comprehensive hands-on support for sales, business development, and performance marketing. Go ahead and drop growth into the comments if you want to learn how to do that. Today, we are fortunate enough to have Charlie Saffro on the podcast. She is a powerhouse founder and the CEO of CS Recruiting. She's a top-ranked supply chain and logistics recruiting firm whose human-first leadership philosophy has transformed hiring culture and inspired thousands through her TEDx talks, keynotes, and bold approach to building people-centered businesses. Charlie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. And I appreciate that very kind introduction.
Oh, I mean, it would be one thing to be kind, but I am literally just being scientific and factual. You are impressive, and we're lucky to have you on the podcast. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm very happy to be here and looking forward to the convo.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about your business. What was the gap in the market where you said to yourself, I am going to do something very hard. I am going to bring this business to life through my own will, and I'm going to help people do something. What instigated that?
Such a good question. And when I think back, there was a huge gap in the industry. There were not a lot of recruiters that really specialized in logistics, supply chain, and transportation, that understood the complexity of the industry, the dynamics, the different roles and functions. I say all that it would have been very wise if I identified that gap and then created a business plan and got a loan, but that's not how I did it. It was literally an accident. So I say I literally, am an accidental entrepreneur because I started a business without intending to. And the difference is I saw the opportunity after I got some momentum and just took advantage of it, and am still hanging on to the wave. So I started my business right after I was working at a company as a corporate recruiter. They were acquired. So when the new ownership came in, I did some projects for them and finished up a few of my searches to find them their new hires. And then we parted ways. So it was the first time in my career where I really was out of work. I had 3 sons at this time, and they were all, I think, 3 sons under 4 years old, and I didn't have a steady job. What I did was I put myself on LinkedIn. This was 2010, right around the time where people started to hype about it. I positioned myself the way I thought of myself professionally. I was a logistics supply chain recruiter, and I built up this little side hustle that was a nice little gig. And, I worked when I wanted to work. I was probably, doing 30, 40 hours a week, but it was just me. I was a solopreneur. Went into a meeting one day that I had no business being in. And I'm going to say I overpitched myself. I kind of faked it till I made it a little too hard with some investors.
Yeah.
Walked out with a huge contract. That was the moment where I was like, okay, I need to either do something or walk away before I fail, because I just looked these men in the eye, told them I could deliver, help them build a 200-person team. And now I'm going home to change diapers and make dinner, and I don't have any help. So that was really the catalyst moment. But I would say at that point, I'd probably been a solopreneur for 8 to 10 months. I knew there was a gap in the industry. I knew there was an opportunity, but I was just thinking an opportunity for me as a part-time working mom. I wasn't thinking about the opportunity on a much grander scale, which would include my own employees that we eventually, added to our team as we scaled. So yeah, it was an accident, but no business plan. It was a bootstrap business that it was step by step and taking advantage of what was in front of me, but also being very scared to fail.
Yeah. And I think those are very powerful motivators. One of my favorite quotes is luck favors the prepared, and so, And it's not necessarily that you need the preparation. It's more that all of the factors and elements of your life that made you who you were, that made you a go-getter, gave you the courage to know that you could do that and bank on yourself and then succeed and, take that win. So huge congratulations. I know that's tough.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, when I think back, I was like, man, I was ballsy. I remember just like getting that meeting opportunity, almost not going because I like second guessed myself. And then I was like, whatever, I can do some research. I could be curious. I can, schmooze with these guys. So it was just, I was just thinking on the short term, but it did lead to something very long term that's been, yeah, the last 15 years of my career.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think a lot of people think that, it's not personal. It's just business. But you've said the opposite. You've said business is personal. And I love it, because I think it is. It's just like, it's the same thing. Your money is personal. It funds your lifestyle. It funds the meals with your kids. It funds your family, right? Money is personal. Well, then business has to be personal. So how has that belief helped to shape the way that you lead and hire and scale teams for people?
I'm in the business of connecting people. So no matter what I'm doing, I am seeing how important it is to recognize humans in the workplace and to recognize those humans for who they are behind their title. As a recruiter, I have your resume. I can read. I want to hear who you are. I want to know your story. And over the years, I've just realized that most of the successful hires are a result of those soft skills. I don't want to say culture fit, but like a culture add, someone who is going to blend in and, add on to what they've already got. But I've just realized the way that people thrive is when they feel connected, when they feel engaged, and that comes through relationships. Even if you're in a role where you are, a sole contributor, having a relationship with the receptionist, the person next to you, your boss, being able to answer, hey, how was your weekend? What did you do? I just am such a proponent of like knowing people beyond their title. And so in recruiting, that's obviously important because a big part of my success is retention. And when our team really helps a company hire, we want that new hire to stay as long as possible. And if a new hire starts and they're ignored and treated like they're invisible and never, nobody ever engages them, they're not going to stay there. And that's kind of how we've become this team that really preaches people first and human leadership. So I first intentionally really thought about it from a third party perspective as a recruiter. We're putting people at companies, we're hearing horror stories of how people have been treated and why they want to move. But then as I started to grow my business, I think I subconsciously like applied all the best practices. I saw this leader did this. I talked to someone once who told me their company did this and it meant something to them. And so just brought all of these different rituals and tactics and strategies into our team, all focused on this idea of business is personal. And it's personal because we are two humans working together and we're going to work harder if we have a connection of any kind. So that's really where I go with that is the two fronts, me as a leader, recognizing my employees for who they are, but also as a recruiter and a talent expert. It's such a huge part of our productivity and just our happiness if we're going to spend half our lives working, which most of us do.
Yeah, well said. I think that, when you talk about adding to the company culture, rather than just like, are they just a good culture fit? Because at some point, like, yes, we're heading in the right direction, trying to get the right culture fit, but it becomes such a buzzword that it's like, is it honest anymore? Or did you just look at all the other companies who said they want a good company culture and a good culture fit, right? So what's the biggest shift that you're seeing in how companies hire for culture, create a culture, or if they're not creating a culture, have culture created for them, probably not in a good way because they decided not to act on it,
Yeah, I think culture is a combination of design and default. When I started my business and I hired my first employee, we had a culture. It was really our relationship and dynamic. But I think back to that first hire shaped so much of who we became as a company. Without getting into too much detail, I got connected to someone who was a perfect resume for what I was looking for with my very first hire. They lived in the city. My office was in the suburbs. I made them a deal that they could have a hybrid schedule. This was 2011. So from 2011 until the pandemic, everyone on our team worked from home 2 days a week and came into the office 3 days. And I did it because this one individual needed it to accept the position, but then it became a perk and something we offered. And then we started to really think about, okay, if this is our culture of trust, of empowerment, of autonomy, we really need to hire the right people because we can't just trust anyone to work from home 2 days a week. So it's all about, like, to me, that was, we were designing it, but it was being designed by like this foundation that we defaulted to. And then when we hired our next person, you add on another layer and another layer. And so I think that's where culture can be confusing. It's dynamic, it's always changing. Every person is going to contribute something to a company culture. And I think leaders just need to be aware that, there is design to it, and you can be intentional. Yeah, I mean, sorry, I don't want to ramble, but I think there's so much to be said on this, and it's control what you can control.
Yes. And I think that that's very well said. And, you started small, you have been doing this ever since the beginning, but now you have 40-person team, you have national recognition, you have many clients. So do you think that somebody should start by being genuine and build from there? Or do you think that they should build and do whatever they can to get the business and then try to implement that type of genuine spirit?
I think it has to be the business first, because I think there's a lot of company culture that shows up in just the way you do business. Because I put my people first, they put their candidates first, they put their clients first. And so it really like trickles in, whether they aren't interested in getting to know us or not, like we are going to make that effort because it's important for our work. But I think most owners, a lot of entrepreneurs, the culture is not a reflection of the entrepreneur, because they're an entrepreneur. They're not a leader. They're not an executive. They just are the idea person. And so sometimes it's the person who starts the business and it's going to kind of revolve around them and who they hire. But other times that person might step out and it's completely relying on that first group of people. And then as you layer in new employees. So it's interesting. Leaders have a lot of, I'd say, leverage to influence the culture, but not every company culture is a reflection of the leader if they have exited those conversations.
Yeah. So how do you know who's a good fit for you to work with? And on the flip side, how would a company know that you are the right fit for them to be able to support them as a comprehensive, holistic partnership to hire better?
So how do we know if a company is a good fit for us? I am the type of person that, I will give everyone a chance. I will have a conversation with any company. I have seen so many, like, I want to almost call them miracles happen in my career, recruiting miracles, that I truly believe there is a job for everyone. And there's a company for everyone. But we also use our gut and collect information. And if one of our recruiters screens someone from a company and they share the story that this person needs a new job because they're being discriminated against, they feel sexually harassed, whatever, all these different points, and that company calls us to partner with us, like, we're not going to work with them. And so that also happens, like fool me once type of situation. We may have a great engagement with a company. They treat us with respect. We get someone in there, they start on the first day and call us, and, it was a miserable experience. There are always three sides to the story, but we're going to be really cautious before we go place another person there until we at least see what happens here and, kind of feel the situation out. So a lot of it is gut. A lot of it is just, different anecdotes. Like, we hear and see so much. These job seekers confide in us way beyond their career needs. So putting those puzzle pieces together, and then what was the second half of the question? Oh, what do we offer them is really just an unparalleled network and knowledge base. Like I said, like, recruiting is a relationship business, but we know the industry so well that our clients, I think, are attracted to working with us because they don't have to take a step back and start from the beginning. Like, just tell me what you need. If I was going to talk in industry speak, like, I need a, LTL consolidated terminal manager, like, I know exactly what that means. So I think that is really something that our clients appreciate, is we've seen it all, we've done it all, we know the industry. Like, we're kind of just like a partner that can slide right in, and all of a sudden you have access to our very, very vast network for both sides, whether you're looking for a job or looking to hire.
Yeah, I think speaking each other's language is absolutely critical. I was traveling with some friends in Thailand, and my friend's girlfriend, she was asking, hey, what kind of meat is in here? And he's like, what kind of meat do you want to be in here? Do you want this to be pork, or do you want this to be cow? It's that,
Mhm.
and it's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
you can't fake it.
Right.
If if you speak it and you understand it, and if it's genuine, it's so different than if you're just pandering. Because
Exactly.
I think that we're in a day and age where there's so much competition out there. We just can't pander anymore.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and there's so many situations where you can strategically then tie the culture back to your business. And that's kind of what we've tried to do is we are a people first business. We have a people first culture, but that also really trickles out to everyone we touch as clients, as job seekers, as partners. So yeah, like letting the culture represent your service if you can kind of create that perception.
Yeah. Yeah. Smart. So knowing what you know, having been through what you've been through, being at the position where you are now, if you wanted to double or triple or even 10x your company growth over the next 3 years, what's the one thing in your way? What is that roadblock and how would you smash through it if you could?
Man. Well, I'm going to go back to something you said earlier when you mentioned a 40-person team. And I just want to be very honest. Our team is now 20 people. We were at our peak with 40 people back in 2021 into 2022. For 13 years straight, my biggest problem as a business owner was that we had too much business. And like, I recognize that every day, like, this is not a problem, but it is still a tension that we need to solve for. We need to hire and scale to support it. And then the COVID happened, the great resignation, if you remember the whole shuffle, and it was a very good market for us. And then literally the end of 22, what I would get out of the way that is really blocking us from continuing to grow is fear. And it's not my fear, it's fear of the business leader's fear because of the market conditions. And that is what slowed our business down. It forced us to cut our team when we didn't want to. But late in 22, just the economy stalled. And then when you really think of our work, if people stop buying, then companies stop making stuff. And that means they stop shipping stuff and distributing stuff and manufacturing stuff. And that's our business. So it was a very obvious cycle. I'd say we're crawling out of it 3 years later. But if you talk to anyone in recruiting or anyone in logistics, they're going to tell you these last couple of years have just been rough. So we've scaled in a different way, scaling with a lean team. If I had all the money in the world, I would say, AI is going to be the answer to how we scale quickly, efficiently, cautiously. However, I'm talking about AI that humans operate, not AI that replaces humans.
Yes. Yeah. The human is still steering the ship, and then the ship is powered by AI.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, yeah, we talk about uncertain markets. I mean, even I can only imagine how the tariffs and international shipping have been affecting business, which then, of course, affects their people's abilities to work with you and justifiably puts fear into their hearts, unfortunately, of like.
Exactly. Yeah, these tariffs have been interesting because it's like the first round of announcements, we had clients react. So some clients called us like, we need to hire an import person immediately to get ahead of this. And then other clients were thinking, we need to stall this search and, freeze this search. We're not going to replace our president anymore that this is going on.
Mhm.
Then another wave of announcements comes. And like, I just think like our client decision making is such a reflection of what goes on in the market. And if you trace it back to like the news or, different tweets, it's like, oh, we closed 3 searches that day after this was announced, or we opened 3 searches after this was announced. So yeah, we're all just kind of hanging on and kind of making some very, I'd say, spontaneous decisions, but these leaders are very mindful of the long term. They're just not all thinking about the short term.
Mm-hmm.
They're spontaneous about freezing a search, not spontaneous about being risky. So spontaneous with caution.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's clever because there is definitely, I think a lot of people when it comes to markets like that are very reactive. But when you are considering the long term and hiring for the long term, that's very proactive.
Yeah. Yeah. And just having the right people to scale from there.
Yeah. And the spontaneousness really just speaks to agility and the flexibility to adapt and pivot to new interesting innovations.
And that seems to be like the skill of the year and maybe the future years too. I mean, when we talk about hiring, you've got hard skills, technical skills, you know how to use this technology or you are trained in this process, but the soft skills, resilience, agility, adaptability, that is what everyone is looking for now. And candidates need to be able to demonstrate that. Like I, have a story of when I was agile or adaptable because the future is just so unpredictable right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And where can people best find you and connect with you?
On LinkedIn is probably the easiest way to get connected. Our team puts out a ton of content. So follow our team page, CS Recruiting. And then I would love some new followers and new engagement and new inspiration for me in my feed. So follow me. And if you listen to this, I'd love to hear what you thought of our conversation. Not you, Jules, but our listeners.
Yeah, no, for all of our viewers and listeners, all those links are right below in the show notes. Go ahead and look down and you're going to find all the best places to connect with Charlie.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate your expertise and insight.
My pleasure.